All right, that's enough of that. So, Infected Mushroom, classical mushroom from the year 2000, one of my favorite albums. Check it out. All right, this is video number 6 of the 5-year club, January 6th. And so I'm going to do a little bit of review. I'm going to talk about subscriber progress since yesterday was the first time that I really told anybody outside of like 1 or 2 people that I'm doing this. And I've got 3 subscribers now on YouTube, maybe 2 likes, and I think like 30 view minutes. And I mean, on the one hand, I look at that and I'm like, well, I had 0 in the morning, so that's an infinite gain. Or put a different way, if you work on your own financial picture, that's like, you got like, that's like 100%, because it's like a whole person. But if you can help other people, even if it's like 3 people, that's like 300%. That's huge. So I'm really excited about it. But obviously, if you can only get to like 3 people, I think you can get bummed out. It's kind of like you invite, I don't know, let's say like 600 people on Facebook to a party and like 3 attend. You're like, oh, that's no good. But my attitude has changed about that kind of thing over time. I've come to think that I've come to view it differently, and I've come to view it differently in the following way: is that when I was growing up, I used to think about life as kind of, you go through high school, you go through college, you work on yourself when you're young, and you build like a really fast car, like a really good looking Ferrari, and then you get to adulthood and you just floor it, and like you accelerate and go to the stars, and everything is magical and happy, and you're Bill Zuckerberg, right? Bill Zuckerberg, that's a real person. So yeah, but that hasn't been my experience in adulthood. My experience in adulthood has been more like, yes, you built a car and it was really fast and it was really cool and you spent a long time doing it, but then as it turns out, life is more like a jungle, so now you're stuck with this car in this jungle, having to get through the jungle. So you're still flooring it because wolves are chasing you, but your light just got clipped off, your mirror just got clipped off by a tree. You bust one of the headlamps on a route. Your back right tire gets stuck in a puddle, and and your trunk falls off. And over time, as these things happen, they kind of freak you out. You look around and you're like, my door just came off. But then you keep going and you realize, like, oh, I didn't actually need a door, apparently. This car still goes, and in fact, because I don't have the door anymore, it's lighter. So then when, one of the seats explodes behind you, you're like, well, apparently I didn't need a seat. This car is going to keep on going. And so as more bad things have happened around me, they've become less distracting. And I become much more focused on, when the engine breaks, I have to stop the car and fix the engine quickly and keep moving. But I don't expect things to go fantastically well. And when they don't go fantastically well, I guess I look at it and I think like, okay, well, this is just another situation like that. It's an opportunity for me to fix the engine. I don't know how to fix the engine. So now I'm going to change things, learn how to fix the engine. And then when this happens in the future, it's going to be a smoother ride. So yeah, that's where I am. And I like it because in 1 or 2 years, if I have 100 or 200 or 1,000 subscribers, then I can look back at this video and look back at this day and see a transformation from nothing into something. And that gives you a lot more confidence when you try things after that, because you can see that things can work out. So, okay, end of rant. Okay, so reviewing what I've talked about so far. 1, people are in trouble for retirement. They don't have enough for retirement. They're not saving enough. Number 2, building net worth is the solution to that. Not Social Security and not pension plans. Social Security is bad, A, because it gives you a terrible rate of return, and B, because it's run by the government, and they're already saying that without any changes, there's going to be a 20% cutback by 2024 in Social Security or something like that. Well, where do you think that money is going to come from if they fix Social Security? It's going to come from me, so I'm just paying more of an opportunity cost. So that's just hurting my retirement savings outside of Social Security even more. So Social Security, we can't count on it. It's poorly managed. It's bad. Pension plans, if the company that provides the pension fails, your pension goes away. And in the case of, California teachers, that pension plan is extremely mismanaged. And San Jose city workers, when the city is broke because they're mismanaged, your pension is going to be renegotiated and you're going to be paying for that. So, pension plans and Social Security are not reliable, and everyone needs to be building net worth outside of those vehicles to handle themselves no matter what. All right, how much net worth will you need to retire? You'll need about 25 times your annual spending to retire. And I'll cover that figure even in more depth in future videos. The way we're going to get to a seemingly large number, 25 times annual spending, is to save and invest money over time. So this video is going to discuss what the parameters are around determining how much you need to save. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so I want to define some terms up front so that I don't have to talk more about it later. So a growth rate is the rate at which your investments grow. And that is just the dollar amount that they change every year. So if you have $1,000 and during the year you earn $80, you had an 8% growth rate. But I don't use the growth rate here. I use what I call a real growth rate. The real growth rate is the growth rate, like 8%, minus inflation, which I estimate at 3%. And I do this because by underestimating, quote unquote, the growth rate and saying it's only going to grow at 5% instead of 8%, I account for inflation. And so I don't have to worry about including inflation as a small detail in a lot of different calculations. I just know that this growth rate, I've already subtracted inflation out of it, and so it's included in the math. So inflation is the increase in cost of goods over time due to money printing by the government and other factors. And a real withdrawal rate, I'll call it that, is the percentage of your nest egg that you withdraw every year, and it increases with inflation. Or since your nest egg increases with inflation, then this 4% of that is also going to increase with inflation. That way you can keep buying the same milk, the same bread, living in the same place when you are using this passive income to live. And I will get into this calculation briefly. Okay, so we have take-home pay here, what you bring home, and you're either going to save that money, so 1% of that is savings, or you're going to spend the money. Any money that you don't spend is savings, so savings plus spending is equal to 100% of your take-home pay. That means that your spending is equal to 100% of your take-home pay minus what you save. If you didn't save it, you spent it. So every year you're going to withdraw 4% of your egg to live on. So 4% of the egg is equal to your annual spending. Therefore, the egg is equal to your annual spending divided by 0.04. So 1 divided by 0.04 is 25. Therefore, the egg is equal to 25 times your spending, and the spending is equal to 100 minus savings. So the egg is equal to 25 times 100 minus savings. Cool. All right. On the internet, I found a compounding interest formula with recurring investments. So in other words, you deposit the same amount every month, every year, and it's got some kind of return rate, that's R, and this formula is going to calculate how much you end up when you invest a certain amount over and over again over, a period of time at a certain rate. So more or less what I do down here is I substitute in my numbers. I substitute in, that the egg is equal to 25 times 100% minus the savings percentage. I substitute in that R is going to be about 5% real growth rate. And I did even more algebra on a piece of paper outside of this page to isolate the savings percentage on one side and then say, the years of working on the other side, so that I can calculate for any number of years of working what the savings percentage I need will be to achieve this egg that we're trying to get at. And I graphed it. So I have two lines here. One line is if I consider it as a percentage of your take-home pay. So what this graph means is that if you want to work for 20 years and then retire, then you need to be saving about, I don't know what this is, maybe 40%. And if you want to work for 30 years and then retire, you need to be saving something around, this says 26.38%, but it really depends on when the compounding happens. I say 28% of the time. I say 28% most of the time in this, because it depends upon if you add the investment at the end of the year or the beginning of the year when you're calculating this stuff. So the blue line is calculating these percentages of your take-home pay. If you only want to work for 10 years, then you need to be saving, I don't know what this is, 63% of your take-home pay on the blue line. Let's see, 10 years, 65% of your take-home pay. Yep. So the red line is the same calculation, but what I do is I multiply this by the rate of money that you actually get to keep of your gross pay. So in other words, this line is the percentage of your gross pay that you need to save in order to achieve those same savings targets. And the reason why I did this is I wanted to show you that if we plan on working for 30 years and then retiring, then you need to be saving at least, this says 26%, a different calculation said 28%. They're about the same. They're off by, 1 year. And that seems really high, 26%, 28% seems like a really high percentage to save. But if you look at what other financial people are telling you to save, you have to realize that they're talking about savings percentage of your gross income. In other words, the total amount of pay that you take home, not your take-home pay. And 26.38% of your take-home pay is equal to about 16.8% of your gross pay. And typically, financial retirement people will say that you need to be saving 10 to 15% of your gross pay to retire. I think 10% is way too low. Dave Ramsey says 15%. 16% is awfully close to 15%, so I feel very comfortable giving out these numbers and saying this is reasonable and this is what it's going to take. So, moving on from the math now. So this is essentially the same formula that I calculated before, except that, let's see, savings rate 28. Yeah, this is the same formula that I calculated before, except now what I'm doing is I am adding up. I use a different kind of formula where I add up year by year. Okay, you contributed this additional percentage of your savings and it grew by this much. how close are you to achieving that 25x multiple? And I have a conditional formatting thing in here that turns the cell green once you hit 100% or above. So you can see that at a savings rate of 28%, year 30 of working, we hit 100% of the nest egg that we need to retire. Cool. So every year we invest the same percentage of our take-home pay, even if that take-home pay rises or falls. If we save 28%, it so happens that we achieve the spending multiple 25, which is implied by the 4% withdrawal rate that we're assuming. And that 4% withdrawal number needs to be lower than the real return from our investments. So if we think the real return is only going to be 3%, then this 4% assumption isn't going to work, and we've got to change this. It's going to become much harder to retire. And yeah, if we don't invest this 28%, we risk running out of money in retirement. The next thing I want to talk about is why you need to get to your target savings rate as soon as possible. This is the impact of delay on a 30-year retirement plan. What I've done is I've taken the money that you invest in each 5-year interval from the beginning to the end, and I've extrapolated out how much just that 5 years of invested money by itself has grown to by the end of the period, and then I've compared them to each other in a pie chart. What this pie chart means is that the first 5 years of contribution in a 30-year plan is 28% of the final money. So if you delay your retirement savings by 5 years out of 30 years, you just lost 28% of your retirement nest egg. If you delay by 10 years in a 30-year plan, you have lost over half of the nest egg. So you've cut your retirement in half by delaying your investment by 10 years out of a 30-year plan. Equivalently, what this means is that if you cut your if you did your savings rate for the first 10 years of the 30 years and you did nothing for the last 20 years, you would come out ahead of a person who delayed by 10 years and then invested for 20 years. Point is, this early money is extremely important in your retirement plan. Extremely important. If you delay a 30-year retirement plan by 15 years, you can see most of the money is gone. It's really, really difficult to catch up because achieving that 25x multiple really depends upon getting compounding returns, and compounding returns take time. This delay being so expensive also means that your money when you're young is extremely valuable. So, you think about you spend $1 at the age of 25, that's not really $1 you're spending. That's really like $4 you're spending because of what it would grow to if you had invested it. And everyone's going to need to invest, this 28% in order to have a balanced financial life and not be poor at the end. So do not delay. Like I if I could add horrifying, ghoulish figures to this pie chart to scare you, I would. It dominates retirement outcomes. It's extremely important to put away money early. It's extremely important to sacrifice lifestyle when you're in your 20s, when you're in your 30s, to make sure that the plan works out. When you're in good health, it's easier to be happy when you're not spending money because you have health automatically because you're young. When you're old, you're going to have to spend money on some health care, and things are just more difficult, so it's great to have the money around. All right, so this is a fancier calculation that shows what happens if you quit your 30-year plan early. The red squares represent a negative nest egg, so it means you ran out of money and you can't live anymore. The yellow squares represent less than 100% of your nest egg, which means that your nest egg is being depleted, and therefore you will run out of money eventually. And the white squares means that your nest egg is above 100%, and so it's self-sustaining, and you can retire indefinitely with that same spending rate. So on this 30-year plan, when you're saving 28%, if you decide that, at the 10-year mark that you want to cut out and you don't want to work anymore, then you're going to be able to retire for, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And after 5 years, you will be out of money and the game is over. If you decide to quit at the 20-year mark, then you're going to have, let's see, I think this is more like, this is like 16 or 17 years. Oh, no, 19 years. Nice. Okay. So, yeah, basically, if you hit the 20-year mark and then someone says you have terminal cancer, go ahead and quit. Because, you're probably not going to last 19 years on terminal cancer. That's just how it goes. Of course, around the 28, 29-year mark, your nest egg will fall below 100% for a while, but will kind of slowly build itself back up. So you will probably be fine if you have to retire 2 years early, 1 year early. So that helps a little bit. Something else I want to show you about this is that for every additional year that you save, how many more years of retirement are you buying yourself? Well, in the beginning, there's no additional years of retirement. So between year 3 and year 4, you're only building about 6 months of retirement per year or something like that. I'm going to move around. My chair always hits the couch. It's really annoying. Okay. Yeah, so for every year that you work in the beginning, you're only getting like months of retirement. But later on in the plan, you can see starting here, after year 15 of this retirement plan, every additional year that you work, this got you 2 more years of retirement for that additional year that you worked right there. Eventually, when you hit year 20 of the retirement plan, every additional year that you work is an additional 3 years of retirement. You hit 23 of the retirement plan, you got 4 years of additional retirement for every additional year that you work. What this means is that if you're on the cusp of retirement and you're older, additional years of working and saving are disproportionately valuable as long as you have that nest egg. The reason why these grow faster than the ones in the beginning is because by this time, much of the growth that's happening here are investment returns and not salary contribution. So if you can just keep yourself from touching that nest egg in the later years, it automatically grows itself. Whereas in the beginning, there's just not enough there compared to the contribution of your salary to make it grow as quickly. This is a graph that shows when you run out of money. It's on a log scale. What the log scale means is that when your nest egg hits 0, these lines end. And so all of these ended lines represent nest eggs that have run out of money. And, these first two are going to be those first 2 years of retirement. So you can see that for the 30-year plan, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So 23 years of working on this 30-year plan, and you're still going to run out of money. But if we look at year 24, we can see that you don't run out of money. You have 30 years of retirement. So if you live longer than 30 years after you retire, it's not going to work out because this nest egg is going down. But at least saving 28% of your take-home pay for 24 years, you can then retire for 30 years and your nest egg will still be around. So I hope that I hope this will give you a little idea of the shape of the math. I'm going to share this Google Doc so you can copy it for yourself, play with the formulas, learn more about it. Um, yeah. The next thing I want to cover is we all know that the stock market doesn't return 8% per year like clockwork. We know that because of financial crashes like 1929 and 2008 and 1987, the year 2000. Um, the stock market on average, I think, has a growth rate of I think it's about 9% if you take the S&P 500. Um, so I assume 8% in these calculations just to be a little bit conservative. But it can have swings that are like plus or minus 10% every year. You know, in the case of 2008, I think it was like minus 40% or something for that year. And so what I want to show you next is I want to show you these same calculations, but instead of assuming a regular fixed return rate every year, I've randomized the return rate. Now, the average of my randomized return rate is a realistic number, but there's a deviation, and I've based the deviation that I use from year to year on the actual deviation of the stock market. All right. Yeah, I moved this ahead. Okay, so these beginning numbers are just return percentages on an annual basis. And so that you can see they move around quite a lot. If they are below the average, then I paint them red. If they're above the average, then I paint them green. And what I do here, what a Monte Carlo simulation is it's this same sheet that we had before, except I'm creating one of these rows. In this case, let's see, I'm using in this case I'm starting out with 100% nest egg, and then I do 100 simulations. That's why that 100 is right there. Except that, so this is simulating what can happen after you retire, and I simulate it 100 times. So these are 100 possible retirement outcomes, and I vary the stock market returns during that retirement time with the same characteristics that the stock market returns from the actual market have. And what that produces is this crazy spaghetti graph. And like I said before, downward ending lines mean that you ran out of money in those simulations. My assumptions with this are similar to before. I'm assuming a 4% withdrawal rate. I also have a safety withdrawal rate, which I'll discuss a little bit later. And I'm assuming a 7% return from, the S&P 500, and I assume a 20% standard deviation from year to year on a normal distribution. For all you nerds who know what that is. Anyway, result is, under fairly reasonable conditions, my retirement plan has, these are failures. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This retirement plan I've given you has an 85% chance of success, according to this randomized simulation. Now, I told you I'm going to discuss the safety withdrawal rate later, so let's discuss it. What the safety withdrawal rate is as I say, you know what? People are smart. And if there's a down market year, when the market returns weren't very good, then the following year, they can choose to spend less money. And so I wanted to model, how does the success rate change when I include the fact that people can make smart decisions about cutting their spending when the market is down. So if I change this from 4% to 3.5%, so you can see all these numbers changed because it regenerated all these random numbers above, and that changes the model. But we can already see that there are many fewer lines in this area that are failure lines. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Actually, I'm not going to count this because it reaches 30. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's a 91% success rate. So we've gone from 86% success rate or 85% success rate to 91% success rate just by assuming that people will spend less when they see that the market has had a bad year. And if I refresh this again, this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is a 92% success rate, assuming that people can spend, I think this is like 12% less is what I did there, when they see that the market has had a down year. And this is the same type of math that like real legitimate financial advisors use to make fancy simulations and projections of your future. And I wanted to talk about it just to show that these assumptions that I used before on these relatively simple charts, they hold up under some statistical scrutiny. And yeah, that's it. So this is your template for figuring out how you're going to get to your nest egg. First, you need to decide how long you want to work. Then find that number, down here. And then once you know how long you want to work, then you follow that up to the savings percentage, either of your gross pay or of your take-home pay. And this line's going to change a little bit depending upon your tax brackets. I based it on mine, and I get taxed a lot because I live in California and I'm an engineer. Hopefully yours will be smaller. So yeah, you follow up working years to a percentage of take-home pay, and then you just need to modify your budget to hit that percentage of take-home pay. And then you're there. Great. Okay. So we've talked about how big the retirement egg needs to be. We've talked about how to figure out the savings percentage of take-home pay that you need to put away. The next video is probably going to cover what a budget looks like this in the Bay Area for someone making $60,000 a year, because I really want to get down and trace the implications of this graph to where you will likely be living, how long you might be living there, and then I want to talk about how can you make more money to improve your lifestyle while saving a lot, or save even more so that you can get out of the working game earlier and buy back more of your time, really. That's what it is. Okay, I hope that was helpful, and have a good day.